Hi guys, this is back to Storytime with Mrs. Rodman, and we are in Chapter 8 of Uncle Wiggily's Happy Days, and this chapter is called The Woozy Wolf. So Uncle Wiggily just escaped from the bobcat by tricking him into eating horseradish, and we're going to see what happens next. Uncle Wiggily was in the middle of the log bridge over the woodland brook when he heard that rustling noise in the bushes behind him. The rabbit gentleman turned so quickly to see what had made the noise that he nearly slipped off of the log and into the water. But he didn't quite fall, and so, balancing himself with the greatest of ease, like Buttercup on the flying trapeze, Uncle Wiggily looked back along the shore of the brook. To his glad surprise, out of the bushes hopped his little friend Prickly Porky, the porcupine boy. Prickly's long, sharp quills, as pointed as arrows, were sticking out every which way from his back and sides. They rattled in the wind, for the quills of a porcupine are as hard as wooden toothpicks, but much sharper. "Oh, so it's you, is it, Uncle Wiggily?" asked Prickly. "Yes," answered the rabbit gentleman, "it is, and I'm glad to see you instead of a bad chap. I just met one of them." "Which one?" asked the little porcupine boy. "The bobcat," said Uncle Wiggily. "But I fooled him." "How?" asked the little porcupine boy. "By giving him some extra sharp, biting horseradish root to chew on when he thought I was going to give him some of my spicy sassafras," explained the rabbit gentleman. "The bobcat ran away as very fast as he could after he chewed on that horseradish. He was heading for water." "I saw him," said Prickly. "He was going fast, with his paws over his mouth, and howling like a fire engine siren. I think he won't trouble you again, Uncle Wiggily, for a long time." "I hope not," said the rabbit gentleman. Just then there was a rustling in the trees over the heads of Mr. Longears and Prickly Porky. Uncle Wiggily had walked back over the log bridge and now was on the same side of the brook as was the porcupine boy. "What's that noise?" asked Prickly. "I only hope it was the wind," said Uncle Wiggily. "I hope it's not the bobcat come back. At first, as I was in the middle of the log bridge, I heard a rustling noise, and I thought you might be the bobcat." If it was the bobcat, I guess Prickly Porky would have shot him full of sharp quills," said another voice. "Who are you?" asked Uncle Wiggily in surprise. "I'm Johnny Bushytail. I'm up in the tree over your head," was the chattering response. "Why, Johnny!" exclaimed Uncle Wiggily. "What are you doing up in the tree?" "I thought I would climb up to see if any nuts were here," said the squirrel boy. "It's too early for nuts," said Uncle Wiggily. "Why, we're only in the middle of summer. Nuts aren't ripe until the fall, just before the winter." "Yes, you're right," Johnny chattered. "I've looked all over the trees for nuts, but there isn't even a lollipop." "Well, scamper home and be a good squirrel boy," said Uncle Wiggily, "though there are happy days ahead for me." "I'm going to have some fun myself," chattered Johnny, and he frisked his big tail like a small dusting brush and started to climb down the tree. Unlike Tommy, Joe, or Kitty Cat, the squirrel boy could come down a tree head first. When a cat climbs a tree, he goes up head first and backs down tail first. That's the way of cats. But a squirrel's claws are different from those of a cat. That is why Johnny could scamper up a tree head first, then turn and come down head first as well. In this way, he could watch out for enemies or bad chaps going up or coming down. A cat would have to turn her head around to look for enemies as she climbed down a tree backwards. "Yes," went on Johnny as he found part of last year's acorn, which he nibbled. "I guess you are glad I wasn't a bad chap, or you may have stuck me with your arrow quills, Prickly Porky." "Now that's where you're wrong," said Uncle Wiggily. "Give Johnny a little nature lesson, my little stickery friend." "We porcupines can't shoot our quills out like arrows," said Prickly. "Our quills are stuck in our skin and fur, very loosely though. They will stick in anyone who touches them, and then they will come loose. And my quills have barbs on the end, like the barbs on fish hooks. So when my quills stick in anybody, they pull out my fur so easily it doesn't hurt me, and it almost seems as though I've shot the quills out myself. But I don't." "That is something I didn't know," said Johnny. "But I guess if any bad chaps so much as brush against you, they get stuck full of quills. And it's almost as bad, isn't it?" "Almost," said Uncle Wiggily. "Little Prickly is such a timid chap with no strong claws or teeth that the only way he can defend himself is to curl up like a ball with the quills sticking out. like needles in a cushion. Then his enemies dare not touch him. Sometimes I use my tail, said Prickly. My tail is like a club. It has a lot of loose quills on it, and when I lash about with my tail and hit a bad chap on the nose, his nose could get stuck full of my little quills. I should think, said Johnny, after a while you'll have no quills left. Oh, my quills grow in again, said the little porcupine boy. Just like the hairs in your tail, Johnny, explained Uncle Wiggily. Thank you for teaching me so much about nature, spoke the little boy squirrel. I have learned so much, I don't think I need to go back to school. Tut, tut, none of that, laughed Uncle Wiggily. Scamper home and do the work you forgot, and then back to school like after vacation, or else the little mouse teacher will be sad and won't like it. All right, I'll go, chattered Johnny. But maybe when I tell Miss Mouse I met you in Prickly Porky, she will ask me a lot of nature questions. Then I can tell her that a porcupine cannot shoot out his quills, and before we know it, it'll be recess. Hooray. Ha ha, laughed Uncle Wiggily. I can see it, Johnny, that you are not going to do very much studying, but I'll leave that to Miss Mouse to deal with. So Johnny scampered back home, and Uncle Wiggily and Prickly Porky crossed the log bridge over the brook and walked together in the fields and through the woods. Do you mind if I come adventuring with you, Uncle Wiggily? Asked the little porcupine boy. I'm delighted to have you, said the rabbit gentleman. I was getting lonesome. Anyhow, you know how I promised to be a sort of protector to you, went on Prickly. If any bad chaps come after you, I will strike them with my tail and fill them full of quills. I'm sure you will, said Uncle Wiggily, but I don't believe I will meet any more bad chaps today. Watch out, suddenly whispered Prickly. I see some animal in the bushes at the turn. Is it a bad chap? No, said Uncle Wiggily, whose eyes were sharper than those of his little friend. That's Mr. Bow Wow, the dog papa of Jackie and Petey Bow Wow. He's a friend of mine. How are you, Mr. Bow Wow? Asked the rabbit gentleman, as the father of Jackie and Petey trotted along the path, wagging his tail. I'm just fine and dandy, Uncle Wiggily, was the answer. How are you? And how is Prickly Porky? I'm fine, said Mr. Longears. So am I, said the little porcupine boy. But please don't come too close to me, Mr. Bow Wow, or you might get accidentally stuck with a sharp quill. I wouldn't stick you on purpose, but... I understand, laughed the dog gentleman. I'll keep my distance. I had a cousin once who made the mistake of, just for fun, trying to bite one of the porcupines. What happened? Asked Uncle Wiggily. Well, my cousin's tongue was stuck so full of spiny quills he couldn't eat for a week other than milk and mush, and his master had to pull out the quills with pincers, as a dentist pulls out teeth. That was a lesson for me, said Mr. Bow Wow. I should think so, said Uncle Wiggily. With a jolly wag of his tail, Mr. Bow Wow trotted along the path, and Uncle Wiggily and Prickly Porky kept on their way. And over the fields and through the woods they wandered, and all of a sudden, as they were going down the little hill into the dell, Uncle Wiggily stopped and said, Oh, what is the matter? Asked the porcupine boy. The wolf is coming, said Uncle Wiggily. He's heading this way. Oh, dear me, I can't run for it, for he would soon catch me and pounce on me. What should I do? Leave it to me, said Prickly. I promise to protect you from all the bad chaps. Let the big bad wolf come. I dare him. And on came the wolf, his tongue hanging hungrily out of his red mouth. And Uncle Wiggily felt so unhappy he couldn't even twinkle his pink nose. But don't worry. Everything is going to be fine and dandy in the next chapter. If, of course, the cabbage will please stop standing on its head and turning somersaults over the bottle of vinegar to make the coffee pot laugh. So I know this chapter was called Uncle Wiggily and the Woozy Wolf, but we just got started with the Woozy Wolf, and we'll have to see what happens in the next chapter tomorrow.